What's up, Spice Droppers? The sun's out, spring is here, and it's Charlie from Ferndale. Bing, ding, 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 ding. Well, in honor of spring, today we are going to make something that was definitely inspired by my trip to Florida. Macadamia Encrusted Flounder with a little crab cakes type stuffing, and we're going to make some Hollandaise to put over that. But enough chit chat. Let's start cooking. Alright, first things first, we got our veggies. I'm using asparagus because that goes great with Hollandaise, and then I'm also using carrots because I want some color underneath everything. Now with the asparagus, I cut it down and cleaned it. Pro tip, don't just cut it with a knife. When you buy this, all you do is grab both ends and snap it, and it will snap where it needs to be cut. The carrots I cut lengthwise, tried to keep a similar thickness to the asparagus. I like to keep the skin on my carrots for some texture. Feel free to peel that off. If you don't peel it off, definitely give it a real good wash. We're just gonna take those, pour some olive oil over them, and just a little salt and pepper. Give that a nice little mix. Once it's all coated, we can put it on our tray evenly. And once your oven is to 450, we can put those in for probably about 20-25 minutes. And while we do that, we can make the delicious crab cakes. Okay, these crab cakes, super delicious, super easy, a tad bit expensive. So we're gonna make sure we do this right. So I looked at different recipes. I want to use some cornmeal in it with some panko breadcrumbs. I'm going to do that. Also, most recipes call for some spice and some savory ingredients, but I don't want to ruin the sweetness of the fish with that. So don't freak out when I don't put like cayenne pepper in it or something that you say always goes in crab cakes. So what we need is 3 tablespoons of mayonnaise. To that mayonnaise, I'm going to add a 1/3 cup of chopped green onions, and I have a 1/3 cup of pimentos. You could use red bell pepper, you could use any kind of bell pepper, you could leave it out. Last year I really got into the flavor of pimentos, so I tend to use that instead of red pepper in a lot of things. 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. I have some parsley, about a tablespoon. Now I know I don't really want any spiciness or savory flavors in here because I want it to mesh well with that sweet fish, but I am going to throw some Old Bay in there, about a teaspoon and a half, because you can't really have crab cakes without Old Bay. Now we're going to give this mixture a nice stir, and I need some salt and pepper. Now, as Spice Droppers do, which you could not do if the eggs were already in there, we're going to taste don't waste. Ooh, it's fresh, it's vibrant. That lemon juice just brings out a nice citrus kick. Now we got 2 eggs here. So I have 1 pound of crab meat here. I could only find claw meat, but it does have some big chunks in there right on top and everything. I would look for lump crab meat because that's really going to bring out the best texture. The stuff you buy next to the canned tuna fish, definitely avoid. That's just not going to taste good. We're going to do 1 pound of this. And you see, again, there's some bigger chunks in there from the claws. So I'm going to just mix everything together, get everything nice and coated. While I'm doing this, I will say too, I'm making probably about 6 crab cakes. I'm only making 2 pieces of fish, because these crab cakes are going to be delicious on their own as well. So if you were to be making this meal for a full family instead of just 2 servings, all you need to do is add more fish to it. You're not going to need to make more crab cakes. Now, as far as the breading goes, you don't want to use too much breading in crab cakes, otherwise it's going to become like a crab muffin. It's just going to be grainy, and you want it to be fluffy and light like it looks in that bowl. So, I'm going to take my panko breadcrumbs and my cornmeal and add a 1/4 cup of each at a time. So there's a 1/4 cup of the panko, and there's a 1/4 cup of the cornmeal. So by the looks of it, I think I might only need another 1/4 cup of each. Again, fold that in, stir that in, get everything covered by that breading. But again, we want a light, fluffy texture. So it's looking pretty good. I am gonna add another 1/4 cup of each. Cornmeal. Glad I bought some new panko yesterday. Give that a stir in. Now you could also use crushed up crackers. You could use Italian style breadcrumbs instead of panko. But I don't know, I've really started to like the flavor of cornmeal. So that's looking good, but we just want to make sure that we can make a patty. And that is exactly what we want to be able to do with that. It has been 20 minutes, and these veggies are looking great. Nice and roasted, evenly. Don't want them to get too well done while we're cooking stuff. So now we're going to take those and set them aside. I'm just going to throw them on this plate for a minute. And because we are going to be cooking for a little bit more, I'll cover these with tin foil too to keep them warm. Now for these crab cakes, this is going to be hot, but I need to take this rack off and just place that somewhere where it won't burn you. Now I'm just going to take some spray, because we will be putting these crab cakes directly on that tin foil, and I just don't want it to stick. I'm going to take about a palm full, just kind of ball it up tightly, and then smush it down so it looks like a cake, or like a crab cake. And you can make these any size you want. You can make a bunch of mini ones. You can make one big one. For the ones going on the fish, I am going to make them a little bit smaller. I'm going to take some off of these ones so I can make 6. Perfect. Now, we're going to put those back in at 450 for probably about 15 minutes. 12 to 15 minutes, check them. We may need a little more just because some of these are a little bit bigger. Okay, so one of the main ingredients in the Hollandaise is 2 egg yolks. So I'm going to separate those egg yolks and then use the whites as a binder for the breading on the fish. This is easy too, don't worry. You break the egg, open it in half, and just slowly let that egg white separate from the yolk. And then you move back and forth between each side of the eggshell until that egg white falls off. And now we have a perfect egg yolk there. Put the yolk back in this bowl for later use. Second verse, same as the first. Okay, for the dry ingredients, we obviously need macadamia nuts. I got 1 cup here. These are chopped, but what we need them is smashed. So I have them in a Ziploc bag, all the air's out of there. I got my handy dandy tenderizing hammer. We're going to use the flat side, not the spiky side. We're going to cover that with a towel, and one of my favorite parts of any video, we smash it. Now while you're watching this, please remember to like and subscribe and share these videos. Okay, well we sprung a leak, but that's okay. We got these nice and chopped down. We're going to throw that in here. And it's going to be nice having some bigger chunks in there with these smaller bits. Next we need some coconut. I'd say maybe half a cup. So when I was in Florida, I had the Macadamia and Encrusted Flounder, but it was my idea to add this coconut. So kind of the taste for me. That seems about right. We got 2-to-1 ratio there. That's probably perfect. And then we're going to throw some panko in there as well. Again, maybe another half cup. Give that a good mix. So now we get our stations ready. We get our flounder out. This is going to go in the egg white. Get it nice and coated on both sides. We're going to let that drip dry if needed. Then we're going to put it in the dry. And I know I mess this up every single time, but try to do 1 hand wet, 1 hand dry. Get my second fillet. Good to go. So now we have our 2 fillets here. So real quick, while those crab cakes are finishing up, I'm going to take about 1 inch of water in here, and I need this to start simmering for when we make the Hollandaise. Okay, I had these crab cakes in here for about 8 extra minutes because they were so big, but those look perfect. Those look delicious. I got the oven set back down to 425 for the fish. I'm going to take these off, put them on a separate plate, put the wire rack back on here. I'm going to spray this again with some cooking spray. And I'm going to put this in the oven for probably about 8 minutes. Once this is done, I'm going to start doing the Hollandaise because I want my entire focus on the Hollandaise when I'm doing that. I don't want the oven to start beeping while I'm making the Hollandaise. And with the fish, we're looking for an internal temp of 145 degrees. And while that fish is cooking, I'm going to melt down 2 tablespoons of butter, and I'm going to get the juice of half a lemon ready for that Hollandaise. All right, it's been about 10 or 11 minutes. I think it took a little longer because I kept opening and closing the oven. But this fish is ready to go. Look how good that looks. So we're gonna let that sit and rest. We got some steam coming out of our pot, so we're ready to go here. And let's break down this last little bit, the Hollandaise. All right, so for this Hollandaise, I have this water that's on simmer at about medium heat. I have a mixing bowl that is heat safe. We're gonna be putting this right here. Now, if your bowl touches the water, then the eggs are gonna scramble, and that's not what we want. We have a whisk, so I'm gonna do this whole process, no cuts or anything. I may speed up the video a little bit, but I'm gonna show you how easy it is to do, even though everybody is scared to try it because they're afraid it might break. All right, so we put the bowl in, gonna throw those egg yolks in and immediately start whisking them to break them down. And once they become a little frothy, I'm gonna add some lemon juice. Not the whole thing, just a little of it. After that's done whisking for a minute, we'll start throwing in the fat, which is that butter. Very slow drizzle. Do, I don't know, about a third of that butter you have in there. Now that we're there, I'm gonna throw in more of this lemon juice. And you can see it's very liquidy right now. I'm going to throw in the rest of that lemon juice. Turn up the heat a tad, then slowly drizzle the rest of this butter in. Now turn up the heat more, and we just whisk this until it becomes thicker, which it will get thicker now that we have all the oil in there too, the butter. And this is where I speed it up because this takes a while. And you can see now it's starting to get thicker. So now that we are a little bit thicker, we're going to do a little taste test. Very, very good. Very lemony, very sweet. I'm going to throw some salt in there, a pinch of salt, and now you can see we're really thickening it up. So we're going to turn that heat down, add some pepper, and we're at a delicious Hollandaise. Take that out, take that off the heat, and look at that, voila. Thick, creamy, frothy. Let's plate this up. So I'm going to take some of this Hollandaise, make this fancy, eh? I'm terrible at that, but whatever. Take my veggies, lay them out for my fish to rest on. Fish goes here, crab cake there. Or, if you want to technically stuff it. I never understood why they say stuffed when they just lay it on top. But we could kind of break that apart and put it in there. And I'll just drizzle some of this Hollandaise over it. Put a nice little dollop on top there. Look at that, SpiceDroppers. I think we did it again. No lemon needed because it's already in that Hollandaise. Oh man. That crabfish is phenomenal. I mean, this whole thing is phenomenal. And that coconut idea I had, woo-hoo. Oh my God, it's bringing me back to Florida. SpiceDroppers, happy spring, peace and love. I love.